with Jaylee Art Creations, and today we're gonna watercolor and mixed media, so like Sharpie and color pencils and all that jazz. First things first, we gotta set up our area. I can't create anything if my area is dirty. This is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because I'm organized. It's a curse because if for chance I'm not organized, I ain't getting anything done until I'm organized. So what you're looking at is after about an hour and a half of organizing. Yeah. That's about right. But anyways, we're back. So what I'm doing now is I'm laying down tape to put on the paper so this way I can make like a frame. This way, whenever the watercolor smears around, it leaves a cute little white frame. I like it. It's part of my aesthetic. You'll see it in a lot of my pictures with my watercolors. I can't help but say watercolor instead of watercolor, like how you say Whataburger instead of water burger. Anyways, I digress. So I'm making sure the tape is on there nice and tightly. I double lapped or I double sped this whole video up. So if you really want to get an idea of how long it takes to make the piece I'm going to make, honestly, 30, 45 minutes and you should be good. When it comes to watercolor, you can really do a lot of different techniques. You can leave the paper dry and just wet your paintbrush and go at it a little bit at a time. You can drench your paper and drench your paint. That's kind of what I did today. I didn't really drench it, but I did spritz the paper. And I'm just kind of having fun. I don't really have a specific technique. Whenever I got into watercolors, I wanted to be comfortable without being perfect. Growing up, a lot of my pictures that I'm really good at doing or that were really good were close to photorealism. And I always felt like if it wasn't realistic, then it's not good art. But now I'm on the opposite side of that. If it's realistic, it's good art. But also, if it's not realistic and there's a theme or some skill brought into your piece, it's good art no matter what. Also, art's subjective. So you can just throw paint on paper and paper on paper, and it'll be beautiful, honestly. Um, so, whenever I got into watercolors, I challenged myself to not stress about being perfect. How it comes out is how it's meant to come out, and it's up to my creative eye to make something of it. So, right now, I'm just dabbling in the background with some purple, and I'm messing with the dense not density, just like how dark the purple is in some spots, and then I'm adding more water to certain areas. It's also just really soothing to see the water fall down the page. This is one of those techniques where you don't know how it's going to look, and it gets more chaotic, but the more chaotic, the more soothing it is, for me at least. I don't know about you. I hope it's soothing for you to watch. I hope you're taking notes and I hope that you're learning from it too. Maybe you're a perfectionist like I am, and just intentionally messing up helps you broaden your boundaries, push the limits, your own personal limits. It is important, and it's important to know that art can look like anything. And it seems like the best art out there is the art that stands most confident on its own. So if you're insecure while you're making it, it shows usually through your art. So now I'm splattering some yellow. What I like to do usually is And I'm going to do it with this picture, but to just give you a bird's eye view of what I'll be doing. I like to just make some kind of background with watercolor. I like to get the texture on there, the different layers, activity going on. Um, and then from there, I like to draw a picture on top of it. And then I like to add details. Sometimes the details are in the layers of the colors. Sometimes the details are just randomly in the background. It's a little bit chaotic, but that again goes along the lines of being okay with imperfect, which makes it perfect. I'm still trying to figure out watercolors. I'm not a professional by any means. But right now I'm learning that if you want to have that drip effect, you know those videos where somebody has water on paper and you put that color in and it just grows and grows and grows. I'm learning that if I create the line of where the water will stream and then I add more water at the top of that line and then I add the color, it's a lot easier for the color to follow that line. Whereas if I don't create the line, it doesn't really move that fast, it seems. It doesn't fall down the page in a structured flow. It just kind of sits there, which is fine. But for this specific picture, I wanted a lot of movement. I didn't want stillness. So you have to create the movement with the water by drawing out where you want it to flow and then dousing more water at the top of the page and letting it fall. And of course, I did a grand old technical difficulty issue, but we're moving on. We're moving forward. Um, there was a clip that was supposed to be put right before this one, and it was just me drawing out the girl that's on this image. I can create another clip of that on another video. I'm so sorry. Um, yeah, that's okay. It's learning lessons. So I drew this girl with pencil first, and then I went over it with marker to make her bold. And from there, I'm starting to make little creatures and little details in the texture of the watercolor stains. Sometimes I see a couple faces that I'll try to outline. Sometimes it's just blobs, and sometimes it's a blob that turns into a face. That's really my favorite, actually. This part is both challenging and inspiring because I never know what's going to come of it. It's not something I plan ahead. It's not something that I'm looking at a reference photo. It just comes out as I make it. And I never know what it's going to look like till it's done. That's the inspiring part. And it never looks bad, in my opinion. I mean, I know I'm creating it, but if it looked bad, I wouldn't. I'd be too embarrassed to post it, if we're being honest. While that's rolling, let me talk a little bit about the figure that I drew. So I drew in some details with the stripes on the dress. I drew flowy hair to follow along with the motion of the watercolor. I I twisted the paper sideways so it looks like the watercolor is drifting from right to left. And so her hair is also flowing that way. And I drew leaves as well to give the picture motion and activity. So the dress has the details of the stripes, and the arms and the legs have crosshatch shading. Crosshatch shading is where you use small lines side by side to create shading and texture and 3D in your piece. It's not a grand texture in this illustration, but it's something enough to show where the light source is. And again, the light source is coming from right to left, just like the wind is. The hair was really fun. She looks kind of crazy. She looks kind of wild and free. A lot of innocence. And right now I'm going in with just different color pencils to fill in the negative space. Negative space is where there's no color or drawing. So there's a lot of white spaces on my paper. That's negative space. There's no activity there. It's not bad to have negative space, but for this drawing, I feel like it's a little too negative, especially if I want to add that frame in there from the tape. So I need to add more details to make that negative space kind of disappear. I'd much rather the negative space be the color than a white paper. Today I cleared out all of my Prismacolors and I organized them, so it was so nice to have just to see the pencils and know which one I was going to get without rustling and bustling through a big basket of pencils. The texture that I'm adding with the pencils are just a range of different shapes of blobs with different shades of pinks and yellows and purples to go along with the picture. They do have a different texture than the watercolor. It's giving very elementary. And again, I didn't go into this picture planning that, but I like it. It has, again, that like innocence to it and the childlike touch. I am going to be gifting this to my sister and brother in law because they're expecting, and I predict that she's going to be very childlike and very crazy, which is also a blessing and a curse. Um, I was thinking of her a lot whenever I was making this picture, actually. And this is a good representation, I think, of, I don't know, actually, but maybe this will be a good representation of who this little girl is as she grows. And I thought to myself, the picture looks great, but it's not standing out how it needs to be. So that's where I came in with the big bold black outline. If you have too much going on and not enough feature, then that can happen in your pictures. If you'll notice and you're looking through illustrations, a lot of the main portions of the illustrations have that thick black outline, and the purpose is to highlight and have your work stand out from the background so it doesn't get muted into everything else. So that's just something to be mindful of. And then, of course, I had to add some texture. So I'm going in with tiny, tiny white dots through this outline. I haven't done that before, but I'm glad I did. It looks pretty. It looks nice. What would be pretty is if I kept going with that outline and I kept going with the white accents in the black outline. It could be like if she was to tear open the page into a galaxy. That would have been cool. See, you never know. You never know what you can come up with. I did get this reference photo of a version of it from Google. Definitely did not. The hair changed, the arms changed, the dress changed. Um, but the posture was a reference from Google. The motion of the hair was a reference of Google. So it's okay to have references again. I said that in other videos. Um, there's nothing wrong with looking at a picture and being inspired by it and going off of that picture to create your own work. And I felt like it was time to wrap up the chaos. um, so instead of having that frame muted out, I went ahead and outlined that as well. I do have the tape on there still, so whenever I take off the tape, the frame will look real nice, real clean. You never know what's going to come out whenever you just go into a project with an open mind. And I'm going in here writing Eloise, of course, with a very light shaded pencil. And then I'll go in with the outline. It's always good to make sure you know it can fit and everything looks good before putting Sharpie permanent marker on there. I recommend you going the safe and smart route. Letters usually aren't my forte. I usually don't have words in my art, but I think there's an exception for this. Everything in this image is not how I usually have it, and that's how you grow. Do different things, push yourself, push your limits. You might end up learning something about yourself. Today I learned that I can make a professional picture that looks like it was made by a kindergartner, and I love it. There's those dogs that I created out of the images, a weird frog monkey thing. I don't know. The frog monkey thing's my favorite, actually. And there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a few things. I hope you were inspired. If you can't, just like my channel, subscribe. I would appreciate it. I'll see y'all next week.